As part of the broadband data collection, entities have the opportunity to challenge the fixed broadband availability data shown on the FCC's broadband map, or to submit crowdsourced information in response to that availability data. Service providers, governments, and other entities and organizations can submit challenges or crowdsourced data for a set of locations by uploading bulk fixed challenge or bulk fixed crowdsourced data in the BDC system. Bulk fixed challenge data must be submitted in the BDC system via file upload and must conform to specific data specifications. More information on the bulk fixed challenge process can be found online at the BDC Help Center at help.bdc.fcc.gov. After logging into the BDC system at bdc.fcc.gov, then selecting your entity, you can begin the bulk fixed challenge process on the Submissions dashboard page by clicking the Create Submission button. In the window that appears, select Crowdsourced Challenge as the submission type, and then select Bulk Fixed Challenge as your crowdsourced challenge type. Clicking the Create Submission button will close the window and create a link for a new bulk fixed challenge submission within a table on this page. A quick note, this video tutorial focuses on the bulk fixed challenge submission process, but the bulk fixed crowdsource process follows a very similar workflow. To initiate a bulk fixed crowdsourced data submission, you can follow the same steps on this submissions dashboard page, but select the bulk fixed crowdsource option within the first window. To begin the bulk fixed challenge process, click the link created within this table. This page is where you can begin entering your bulk fixed challenge data. Upon your initial visit to the page, you will see two cards or tiles, a submissions card and a total challenges card. The submissions card will give you a total count of bulk fixed challenge submissions you have filed for this entity. The FCC can review each individual submission and can accept or reject your submission as a whole based on the data you've uploaded. This is depicted by the under review, accepted, and rejected counts here. It is important to remember that the counts shown in the submissions card represent the total number of certified bulk fixed challenge submissions filed for your FRN. The total challenges card displays the count of accepted individual challenges contained within all of your submissions. For example, if I upload and certify a CSV with 50 fixed challenge records, the system considers that as one submission containing 50 total challenges. The total challenge count will eventually include a subset of pending challenges, challenges upheld, and challenges overturned. Upon initial upload, your challenges will be listed as pending. Once they have been conceded, resolved, or adjudicated by the FCC, they will be listed as challenge upheld or challenge overturned. It is important to note that the total challenges count will only include the count of challenges in submissions that have been accepted by FCC staff doing an initial review of the submission. For example, if you upload a file containing 50 fixed challenges, but that submission is either under review or has been rejected by the FCC, the total challenges count will not include any challenges from that submission. Once the submission has been accepted, the total challenges count will be updated and a table on this page will be populated with your bulk fixed challenge data. To continue with the bulk fixed challenge process, clicking the Create Submission button will navigate you to the first of 3 data upload steps. Next, clicking the Upload button will open a window that will allow you to upload your challenge data. When submitting bulk fixed challenge files, users must adhere to the data specifications established by the FCC, which vary slightly based on the methodology selected by the user when filing their bulk challenge data. In this window, first select the methodology used to gather the data contained in your bulk fixed challenge submission. A filer would select the Knowledge of Infrastructure option when the user has knowledge of where network facilities and plants exist. For example, this knowledge could be based on local building permit records, rights-of-way records, franchise agreements, or an on-the-ground examination of broadband infrastructure in a particular structure. In this case, the filer would be the contact point for each record contained in the bulk fixed challenge. On the other hand, the information collected from individual consumers option would be based on information collected from individual consumers about the broadband services available and not available to them. This would be an aggregation of reports from individuals who have personal knowledge to the accuracy of the challenges gathered by the entity submitting the bulk fix challenge. For example, a state government agency or a consumer group entity might undertake an effort to collect and verify detailed reports of issues within ISP's availability data in a state from the individuals who live at the location for each record contained in the bulk fix challenge. In this case, the individuals who reside at the location would be the contact point for that particular record. Lastly, if neither of the two methodologies previously discussed fully capture how the user gathered the data contained in the bulk fix challenge submission, the user would select the other methodology. The BDC system will then require the user to explain further the methodology used to gather and verify the information contained in the bulk fix challenge. For this tutorial, I will select information collected from individual consumers as my methodology. Within this required description field, I would enter a text explanation to accompany my methodology. I can then click the Browse button and select a bulk challenge file from my local machine, either in a CSV or zip format, to upload. Please note that only one fixed challenge file can be uploaded at a time. So if you choose to upload a zipped file, that zipped file must only contain a single CSV. There are multiple validations performed in your data as the file is processing, including checks for acceptable column names, validations within individual cells, and safeguards against uploading duplicate data. For a complete list of data specifications for bulk fixed challenge data, please visit the BDC Help Center. You will also see a reference ID presented to you as your file is being processed. This ref ID is unique for all submissions uploaded within the BDC system. Once your file has completed processing, you will see a green checkmark in the Upload Challenge file card, and you'll notice that the Provide Evidence card has been unlocked. Your file also now contains a status of valid data, and a table appears on the page previewing the data included within your file. In this instance, you can see that my file had 500 total records, which have been categorized within a file summary table organized by challenge type. If I'd like to download and examine my process data further, I can click on this Download Process Data link to view a CSV. If I don't want to proceed with this file, I can simply click the Delete icon to start the process over. If your data looks accurate, you can proceed to the Provide Evidence step by clicking on this card. Within this step, you can provide an evidence file or evidence description from each provider included within your challenge data. When you select the Knowledge of Infrastructure methodology, a file upload is required for each provider included within your data. When you select the Information Collected from Individual Consumers or Other methodology, this evidence file upload is optional. Because the methodology I used to file my challenge data was information collected from individual consumers, I may also select this box here to proceed to certification without providing an evidence file or description for one or more of my providers. As you can see within this table, my challenge data included two providers, provider ABC Internet and Broadband XYZ. Within the Manage column, you can select either Upload File or Edit Description. When selecting Upload File, a window will open allowing you to select a file from your local machine in one of several formats. Once that file has finished processing, you will see a status of valid data within the table for the selected provider, as well as the file name and the timestamp when the file was uploaded. To provide an evidence description, I can select that option from the Manage column, then provide my text within this form. Clicking Save closes the window, and now you will see a status of valid data within the table below for each provider listed on my screen. Within the Manage column, you may also edit or delete the description you have provided or delete any file you have uploaded. To continue with your submission, click the Certified Data card. On the Certified Data card in the system, you can view a brief summary of the data you have included within your submission, including challenge file name, record count, the provider count, the date you uploaded your data, and a count of the number of evidence files and evidence descriptions you have provided. You can also click on this View Map link to preview your submission on a map. Within this map, you can view each individual record included within your challenge submission, which may sometimes be depicted with a point clustering feature. In this example, my challenge data included 250 challenges in Minnesota and 250 other challenges near the Utah-Arizona border. If I click on the point cluster here in Minnesota, the map will zoom to the area I have selected, and I can then continue to zoom in on my data so that I may examine each individual challenge location as I wish. The map also includes a file record count and a selected record count, which is based upon your filtered selections. For example, if I filter the map to no longer show challenges for demand for excessive connection charges, the selected record count will update, and the map will now display all 415 locations where the challenge type remains selected on the left-hand side of this page. Hovering my mouse over a location will display a tooltip with information for that individual record. You'll note that each record has been assigned a unique challenge ID, and the tooltip contains additional information related to that challenge, including contact name, address, and an associated fabric location ID. This map behaves the same as other maps within the BDC, allowing you to pan and zoom to view more information on your challenge data. You can also click the globe icon to zoom to a map of the continental United States, or click the layers icon to toggle the base map you wish to view. If your challenge data is depicted accurately on the map, you can return to the Certified Data page to complete your submission. Simply click on the Certify button here, read the certification text, and enter your contact information within this window. You can also click this checkbox here to automatically populate the fields using the information you previously provided on your entity information page within the BDC. Once you've completed the contact information, click the Certify Data button to complete your submission. You will now be presented with the Certified Submissions page, which displays a table of all bulk fixed challenge submissions you've submitted for this FRN. Because this is my first submission for this FRN, my table only includes one row. However, if I were to certify another submission, this table would then display multiple records. You will also see that my status is displayed here as under review, which means that the FCC is currently conducting an initial review of my data submission. If my submission is accepted by the FCC, this status will be updated to accepted, and the individual challenges included within my submission will be sent to the provider. If my submission is rejected for any reason, this status will be updated to rejected, and my individual challenges will not be submitted to the provider. When I return to the bulk fixed challenge page, you can see that my submissions count has been updated to 1, which reflects the under review submission that I just completed. My total challenges count is still 0 and will remain so until I have a submission accepted by the FCC. For this example, I'm going to display what the page will look like when a submission is accepted by the FCC. Off screen, I've just accepted my submission. So as I refresh my page, you'll now see that my submissions count displays 1 accepted submission, and my total challenges card now displays a count of 500 records, each of which is pending. I can view each individual challenge within the table on this page, and I can filter the table by selecting one or more of these drop-down menus, or by entering a specific challenge ID or location ID to narrow my search. For each record in the table, I can click this View link in the Details column to see additional information for each challenge. This information includes a date received and status for the challenge at the top of the modal, as well as a link that will allow me to view the exact location being challenged on a map. The modal also contains additional location data, challenge data, and contact information. At the top of the page, you'll notice 2 links: Download Challenge Results and View Map. The Download Challenge Results is a CSV file that allows you to download all data depicted in the table on this page. In this instance, my file will only include data related to the lone submission I have certified. However, if I had certified multiple submissions, this file would include data across each of the submissions I have certified. Clicking on the View Map link will display a map of all challenge locations across each of my submissions. Because I've only certified one submission in this example, my map is only displaying the 500 records included in that submission. However, if I had multiple certified submissions, this map would display location points across each of my certified submissions. One additional feature on this map is the ability to filter by status. In this case, all of my location points are listed as pending, as my data was just submitted to the FCC. However, if any of my challenges were upheld or overturned by either the FCC or the challenge provider, they would be reflected on this map, and I could filter the map by those statuses. Off screen, I'm going to uphold one challenge so that I can showcase this feature on the map. See that as I refresh the page and zoom back in on the area I was looking at before, I now have one challenge upheld point on the map, indicated by this green circle. As I hover over the location, you'll see that the tooltip also reflects the updated status for this location point. I can filter by status over here, and in this case, I have 1 point, challenge upheld, displayed on the map. When I return to the bulk fix challenge page, you'll now see that I have one challenge upheld among my 500 total challenges, with 499 challenges having a status of pending. Within the bulk fix challenge table, I also have the option to withdraw one or more challenges at a time. For this example, I'm going to click this checkbox for these 3 challenges, then click the withdraw button above the table. A modal will appear asking me to confirm my decision, as withdrawing a challenge is an action that cannot be undone. Now that those 3 challenges have been withdrawn, you can see that my total challenges count has diminished by 3. I now have 497 total challenges, with 496 of those pending, and one of those with the status of challenge upheld. To review any withdrawn challenges, I can click on the withdrawn link within the table. You can see that this tab now includes the 3 challenges I withdrew in the previous step. From this page, I can also click on this Certified Submissions link, which displays an archive of every submission I've certified for this FRM. You'll notice that the status for my previous submission now says accepted, where before it was under review. The reference ID is clickable and allows me to review the data I've included in my previous submission. From here, I can download my original challenge file or evidence data by clicking on the link for the file name, and I can view evidence details and certification details that I included with my submission. I can also return to this View Map link to see a map of data associated with my original submission. This can be useful in cases where multiple submissions have been certified, and you'd like to view maps by submission rather than by all challenges associated with your FRM. This concludes the walkthrough of the BDC bulk fix challenge process. For additional information, including data specifications and video tutorials, please visit the BDC Help Center, which can be accessed at any time by clicking this help link within the BDC system.